Hey, my name's Xenu, and you're listening to Anti-Moonboy News. I'm back from my vacation. I'm refreshed and recharged, and it's a good thing because we got a lot to talk about today. Of course, we will be covering the sentencing of the Samourai Wallet co-founders William Hill and Keonne Rodriguez. We'll also be talking about the market cycle, what's going on, a big dump in the market, but the privacy coin narrative is taking over. Ugh. So we're going to be going over that. We also have some other news tidbits to get to, such as Bitmain being under investigation. So that's going to be interesting. We got super chats, and to end the show, I will be going over my trip to Spain. So it's going to be completely unrelated to crypto stuff, but I know I have fans of the show who like to hear me ramble about unrelated stuff, so we will be doing that at the end. But first, we're going to be talking about Samourai Wallet and the sentencing that happened this past week. William Hill, co-founder of Samourai Wallet, was sentenced to 4 years in prison, 3 years probation, and a $250,000 fine in a New York courthouse. And Keonne Rodriguez was sentenced to 5 years in prison, a $250,000 fine, as well as probation. Now, before I read the article from The Rage talking about the sentencing of Keonne Rodriguez, I wanted to talk a little bit about this case in general, and just the general frustration that I have and many other people have as well, especially listeners of my show, about the lack of interest in this case from the cryptocurrency enthusiasts around the world, and really not even just cryptocurrency, but privacy advocates in general. There's not really many people talking about this case. And this is a landmark case. Same thing with Roman Storm and what he's going through with Tornado Cash. This is a big deal. It is criminalizing code. And this is very, very dangerous because these developers were acting in good faith based on the existing regulations. Now, if you weren't aware, even in the Samourai case, it was found out that the prosecution had actually reached out to FinCEN. They reached out to some higher-ups over at FinCEN, and they asked them if Samourai Wallet was a money transmitter. And FinCEN told them no. They said, no, we don't think so. And the prosecution still went forward with this case. It's a joke. How are they supposed to know that this was illegal? But unfortunately, there is an attack on privacy that is happening right now. And despite this attack that's happening against privacy from these existing projects that were used, despite that, these fucking retards are hyping up privacy coins. These Moonboy retards who have absolutely no care about the idealism that privacy is founded upon. They just want to get rich. And this is why I rant about privacy coins and that term all the time. It doesn't matter. These are just cryptocurrency projects, and privacy right now is under attack. So it's highly frustrating seeing all of these influencers now talking about how privacy is the next big thing, you know, as if they really care. It's actually a very easy way to tell if someone is fraudulent, and that's if they are not talking about Samourai Wallet or Tornado Cash. That's a little pro tip for you. If you want to tell if somebody in cryptocurrency is actually a real one, okay, are they talking about Samourai Wallet? Because if not, they're a Moonboy pussy, okay? That's just a fact. I don't care if they talk about privacy and they say, oh, privacy is a really important thing. If they're not talking about this case, they're a Moonboy pussy. That's just the bottom line. Because or maybe they're just stupid. It's possible. They don't read the news. I mean, it's just a real shame where the focus of Bitcoin and really cryptocurrency in general is just on number go up. It's not about this really fundamentally important story. So let's read this Rage article here. I'm getting enraged. I gotta say, it was nice being on vacation because I turned my mind off basically. I wasn't even really looking at my phone that much. But then I open up Twitter and then I would get all heated again. All right. So it says here, Keonne Rodriguez, co-developer of the Bitcoin privacy wallet Samourai Wallet, has been sentenced to 5 years in prison and a fine of $250,000 by a New York judge after Rodriguez pled guilty to conspiracy to operate an unlicensed money transmitting business. Judge Denise Coates' 5-year ruling matched government prosecutors' request for the maximum possible sentence. Rodriguez's defense team had requested a sentence of 1 year and 1 day, while a pre-sentencing recommendation from probation authorities recommended 42 months. Samourai Wallet was a non-custodial privacy wallet that allowed users to keep their public Bitcoin balances private by employing CoinJoins, a form of collaborative transaction that break the link between inputs and outputs, and a Samourai-specific feature called Ricochet that added additional hops to Bitcoin transactions, adding layers of privacy to the otherwise public movement of funds. In July, Rodriguez and his co-founder, William Hill, pled guilty under Section 1960B1C, Money Transmitter Licensing Law, that criminalizes the known transmission of illicit proceeds, the same subsection that prosecutors used to convict Tornado Cash co-creator Roman Storm in August. Rodriguez's sentencing is the second high-profile prosecution under the clause after the Trump administration claimed the April 2025 Blanche memo that it would no longer prosecute developers for writing code. Earlier this year, Assistant Attorney General Matthew Gagliotti stated that where the evidence shows the software is truly decentralized and solely automates peer-to-peer transactions, and where a third party does not have custody and control over user assets, new 1960B1C charges against the third party will not be approved, which many hope to finally end the Biden-era's regulation by prosecution streak. Judge Coate appeared extremely skeptical of any claim to Samourai Wallet's usefulness for non-criminal ends or general privacy, offering a lengthy critical response to a clemency letter submitted to the court by Rodriguez. While describing the letter as unusually detailed and lengthy, Coates said she had a troubling reaction to Rodriguez's letter, which she felt did not convey contrition. The defendant engaged in very serious antisocial behavior. I don't see the letter acknowledging this, Coates said from the bench. It misunderstands many things. He identifies his motive as protecting financial privacy. That's fine, that's good, but I don't think that's what is really at stake here. The defendant doesn't identify the specific problem Samourai sought to solve, Coates said. There's no acknowledgement in that letter of the criminal world for whom digital currency is a gift. There seems to be no recognition of the human suffering that was facilitated by the defendant. Arguments from the prosecution and defense followed. Government prosecution reiterated claims and evidence in the indictment, including that Rodriguez and Samourai actively courted criminal users by offering discounts to hackers, soliciting Russian and Iranian sanctions violators, and was disappointed when he saw criminal proceeds being processed through competing services. Prosecutors also described what they characterized as suspicious behavior by Rodriguez prior to the indictment, including using cash to conceal his movements. Echoing Judge Coates' readings of Rodriguez's clemency letter, prosecutors concluded that the defendant seems to think that third-party money laundering simply isn't a serious crime. Rodriguez's defense attempted to refute those claims, citing Samourai's non-criminal application in combating the ability to track people's transactions on the blockchain, and citing threats to non-criminal users, including recent cases of kidnapping and blackmail. Rodriguez's defense also claimed ambiguities in the law itself. Rodriguez's view was if you don't need a FinCEN license, all bets are off. There is no Bank Secrecy Act compliance requirement for Samourai Wallet, Rodriguez believed, even if incorrectly. Finally, Rodriguez spoke in his own defense. The letter I wrote to you was something I personally wanted to write because for the last 18 months, I have been unable to speak for myself. You took the wrong meaning from it. I am truly remorseful. Judge Cote did not seem swayed, stating that Rodriguez still seemed to be functioning with moral blinders on and that individual deterrence remained a consideration in her ultimate sentence. In addition to his 60-month sentence and $250,000 punitive fine, Rodriguez will be on supervised release for 3 years following the prison stint. 20% of his gross income will be garnished toward the fine after his release, as will $25 a month for up to 50% of any income earned in federal prison work programs. Rodriguez had additionally been charged with conspiracy to commit money laundering, a charge that was dropped in return for Rodriguez's guilty plea. The government's sentencing memorandum yet relied heavily on money laundering allegations, as well as allegations of sanctions evasion, which it mentioned over 13 times, despite sanctions evasion never being brought as a charge. Rodriguez does have avenues to appeal his sentence, Judge Cote stated. Defense requested that he be placed in a minimum security prison near his Pennsylvania home. Both prosecution and defense agreed. Rodriguez could be released until his surrender for prison on or before December 19th. So that is from The Rage. So yeah, I mean, it's been a catastrophic year for cryptocurrency privacy. And the Trump administration is just full steam ahead, continuing everything that was happening under the Biden administration. And the cope that we're seeing from a lot of the people on Twitter about Trump maybe being a little better, it's over now. Like, this is no different than what we've already seen. The Blanche memo was a joke. Yeah, clearly the prosecution did not get the memo, okay? Like, the Blanche memo was completely meaningless, all things considered, because, and I'm going to be reading this in a little bit, the Tornado Cash case will be retried, or at least the prosecution is pushing for it to be retried. So, like, even in that case, they're still continuing with this. It's just been it's a joke, right? And with Samourai Wallet and with this case, they wanted these guys, and they wanted to make an example of these guys. And unfortunately, they were successful in that. It's a joke that, one, they are being convicted of the money transmitter charge, even though there's a lot of questions as to whether or not this charge is even legitimate. So there's that. But the other thing, too, is, as I was just reading, during the sentencing, the judge is citing money laundering and sanctions evasion and stuff, and it's like they weren't even convicted of that. So she's like citing these things, and it's just like, I thought this was about the money transmitter portion of it. Like, what is this whole thing about sanctions evasion and stuff? The people at Samourai Wallet, the founders here, Keonne Rodriguez and William Hill, they did not know who was using their wallet. It's an open source project, and anyone could use it. So really, the key distinction here, and why they're going to jail, if we take out all the noise here, is two things. The first thing is they were making a profit from this, and that's just the bottom line. This is the foot in the door that governments need. If you are making any sort of profit, there needs to be more regulations. At least that's the perspective of the government. That's what they're saying. If you're making any sort of profit, we want you to be at the mercy of our regulations. That is what they're saying. So there's that aspect of it. And the other aspect of this, and this is especially true for the Samourai Wallet case, much less so for the Tornado Cash case, but for the Samourai Wallet case, the second major reason is they were very arrogant on social media. And that's just how they were. They didn't really give a shit. about optics, and they talked openly about darknet markets and usage of Bitcoin on these markets, and Monero for that matter. They didn't really care about that. They were very vocal about fighting back and, being crypto anarchists. And this is just very hard to argue against in front of a jury. And I think this is one of the main reasons they took the plea deal, because they were kind of seeing what was happening with Tornado Cash and how Roman Storm wore that t-shirt with the washing machine with the Tornado Cash logo. And that's just bad optics. Simple as, right? I'm saying this as the creator of darknet market maximalism, but it's true. Like, I'm not making like a Monero business or whatever. If I did, I am positive I would have a lot of eyes on that, right? I would probably be under heavy surveillance at that point if I did make some sort of company due to my connection to my, cypherpunk writings, but that's just the way it is. So it's just an unfortunate situation. Now, I did see, there's a video, it was an interview with Keonne Rodriguez and this woman. I'm blanking on her name. I'll put a link in the description. And it's like an hour and a half interview. It's kind of like a very basic summary of this case. And the woman, I think she did a great job. She's not very informed about cryptocurrency. Like, she thought Bitcoin was private kind of thing. And Keonne Rodriguez is presenting himself in a very professional manner, very different than his online persona as T-Dev. He was presented himself very well and kind of just calmly explained the case, which I think was a very good decision from him to do that, because, they do need to kind of win over sympathy from people, and they need to get this case kind of, spread out far and wide, and we need more people talking about this. So I thought it was a really good interview, really good summary of things, and I just think most people don't really understand what's going on. And so again, that's my frustration here with this whole privacy coin narrative, is that if this narrative was actually real, this story would be like on everyone's timeline. Everyone would be talking about this story, and I mean everybody. But that's just not. It's not happening. It's like a footnote, right? It's if you have like the headline newspaper every day, the headline image is going to be Michael Saylor's AI generated meme he posts on Twitter. You got the Trump guys talking about Bitcoin being really big. You got investigations in like pump and dump meme coins. And then just in the bottom, like little corner, it's, Samourai Wallet sentenced to jail. You know what I mean? It's just like buried in there. And yet people want to then turn around and say, hey guys, privacy is the next big thing. This is partly why I've created Anti-Moonboy, is, to focus on these things, because there's just not enough people who are focusing on these things. And the kind of the black pill here is like, this is just how cryptocurrency is now. It's we're surrounded by Moonboys who don't care about these things. And that's the problem. And the only way to kind of fix this is to just keep organically growing our, crypto anarchist kind of focused perspective. And you don't even have to have like the political leanings of a crypto anarchist necessarily. That's not a prerequisite, but you have to be here for the concept of digital cash. And we can't compromise on these things, right? We have to want digital cash, peer-to-peer cash, uncensorable money. We can't compromise on that. And unfortunately, there are many people who openly will compromise on that because they don't care. They're tweeting gifs of roller coasters during the crypto market. Not a care in the world, right? They're not here for the idealism. It just doesn't matter to them. Now, in support of this, if you want to get the word out, there has been a change.org petition. I encourage you to sign it. These petitions don't actually, it's not going to have an immediate impact, okay? But it's important because like people aren't talking about this case. You know what I mean? Like, we need more people talking about this. And I don't really have a solution here. They're probably just going to have to serve their time. The good news is 5 years is not the end of the world. It could have been a lot worse. But they had to take the plea deal, evidently. This is actually talked about in that interview I mentioned. Keonne does let it be known that he's in debt and that the legal costs were just so astronomical. They were paying a lot of money, and it was a smart decision to do that too, because they had submitted I forget the legal term for it, but they submitted like a letter kind of explaining their position to the judge about why the case should not be allowed to go through. And the judge just immediately threw it out and said, no, we're going through with the case. Like, didn't even try to reason with them. And once that happened, they kind of realized that like this case is like impossible to win, which it probably was. It was probably set up for them to lose. You know, this is why Roman Storm is, such a badass, because he's actually really going forward and fighting it. And that's not to say that Keonne and William Hill are not badass. They absolutely are. This is just a tough decision. You know, you have families, you have legal costs. Sometimes you do have to just take the plea, as shitty as that might be. But anyways, yeah, check out that petition. Sign it if you can. Retweet it. I think it's important because we need more people talking about this. It was it was kind of funny. I do have to mention this on a different note. So on Twitter, there's actually a bit of a beef right now between two of my favorite privacy content creators. Actually, probably my two favorite ones, between Watchman Privacy and Doing Fed Time, or Sam Bent. They got into it with Sam Bent saying that he thinks these petitions are stupid and he thinks it's a waste of time. And Watchman saying, well, it's not really a waste of time. We're trying to get, the word out. And they started taking some pretty heavy shots at each other. It's like watching my parents fight. It's, guys, please stop. Please, mom and dad, no. But I think the petition, though, I definitely support this. Any sort of momentum, any sort of like forward momentum that we can create for this case, I think will be important. But I mean, will this have an impact? Will it make it to Trump's desk? Probably not. If the past, decade has been any indication, if the past 5 years has been any indication, legitimate usage of peer-to-peer cash is under attack. And that's not changing anytime soon. And I mean, just take a look at Bitcoin today. Go back 10 years and look at Bitcoin. It's a completely different project. And that has to do with the fact that the actual usage of the cryptocurrency, it's not as important to people. And this is the fight that we're in right now, because we're outnumbered, essentially. The Moonboys are running the show. Okay. All right, so that is the Samurai Wallet portion. We're going to now move on to the markets. And Robot has entered the room, and he's got his girlfriend with him, the vacuum cleaner. What's up, guys? How's it going?
Beep boop. Hello, Xenu. I am happy that you are back from your vacation to Spain. And to honor this, I have written a very funny joke that I would like to read to the audience. Beep boop.
Well, that is, that's very kind of you. Okay, well, what's the joke?
Beep boop. What are the two numbers that come after 5? Beep boop.
What are the two numbers that come after 5? Well, I guess it would be 6, 7.
Beep boop. Ha 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 ha. Beep boop.
Well, Robot, that's very clever. Very clever. See, you've discovered brain rot while I was on vacation.
Beep boop. I also have a funny TikTok video I would like to show you. Beep boop.
We can do that later, I think. And you said your girlfriend wants to talk too?
Beep boop. Yes. Here she is. Beep boop.
Okay, I thought we talked about this vacuum cleaner. You can't just yell racial slurs on my program. I'm going to get taken off of YouTube and stuff, and I really need my content on there. Well, obviously I support freedom of speech, but I can't just have you saying those things on the show.
Beep boop. It seems like you can't handle her fiery banter. Beep boop.
Just shut up, okay? Just shut up. Just shut up. Go. You out. I got like another hour to record here, okay? And you're not helping. Ugh. Oh man. All right, they're gone. These clankers, man. Whew. They're just out of control. Okay, let's move on. All right, so let's talk about the markets real quick. It's been chaos over the past couple weeks. Now, we're not going to look at charts or anything. You should know my show by this point. We don't do that. We don't do that here. But it is important, though, to talk about the general market and the movements of the market, because right now, it's pretty clear that there's a lot of uncertainty. Bitcoin is struggling at the moment. Really, the only cryptocurrencies that are outperforming the rest of the market are the quote-unquote privacy coins. Now, this has been led by Zcash and their very likely coordinated pump that has occurred. Whatever. This has been leading the charge, and frankly, Monero has benefited from it. Just today, Monero had pumped quite a bit, actually. I was just looking at the price chart, and it seems that Monero has rallied after quite a big dump. Now, it was pretty funny when I went on my trip. I noticed that basically the day after I left, Monero was in the 400s. It was like it pumped right back to the 400s. It was like, wow. Yeah, it's like right when I left the country, Monero rallies. Kind of funny. But basically last week what happened was Bitcoin totally shit the bed. The entire market dumped with it, except Zcash, I guess, because it's the store of value today. Monero was right with it. And initially, Monero was doing very well. But then Kraken had announced that they were filing to be a publicly traded company. They filed. And very shortly after, Monero dumped. So there was some speculation that this was kind of the cause of this, reason being that Kraken might be delisting Monero in the United States in the near future. I think this is a very reasonable conclusion to draw, not even looking at the dump necessarily, because I do think Kraken will be delisting Monero in the near future in the United States. They've delisted it in Europe. They've delisted it in Canada. Why would they not delist it in the United States? It doesn't really make much sense. I don't really think they are any better than any other centralized exchange. Whatever the case, Monero has rallied right back. And right now, the BTC ratio is at its highest in over 2 years. So Monero is performing great. And I think this is a good signal that during whatever future bear market cryptocurrency goes through, which is inevitable, I think Monero is going to do very well. We've seen this in the past. I think we'll see it again. And, really the main reason I believe that is because Monero is actually used. People go out of their way to buy Monero regardless of the time of year, regardless of the market cycle. And you cannot say that about 99% of cryptocurrencies. Monero is actually being used. And I think this is going to bode very well for it during some sort of prolonged bear market. However, I would be lying to you if I did not agree that there is a developing privacy coin narrative. I hate the phrase privacy coin. I've already sounded off on why I think it's fraudulent. But it's true that people are kind of waking up to this. And it's starting to happen where you're seeing influencers like Tate, Andrew Tate saying things like, oh, you need to use zero knowledge proofs, talking about zero knowledge proofs. And you're seeing Tucker Carlson talking about, I don't really like how Bitcoin isn't private. And that's starting to snowball, right? I'm seeing that more and more. And so, of course, the cynical side of me is thinking, well, people just want to get rich. But there is also a little part of me that's thinking maybe people actually are starting to figure this out. Probably not as much. I do think at the end of the day, people just want to get rich. I do think that. But it's becoming very clear that Bitcoin as digital cash has failed. And so then you look at Monero, which is really the replacement of Bitcoin. And I write about this extensively in Darknet Market Maximalism, where the cryptocurrency of digital cash is what is used on darknet markets because they are people who need cryptocurrency. And those people who need cryptocurrency are using Monero. They also do use Bitcoin. It's true. They also use stablecoins. But on these drug markets, it's Monero dominance. And that is what is happening right now. Complete Monero dominance. Monero is the king on there. And that's just because of its hardcore crypto anarchism. I've seen this a lot with people saying that Zcash is going to take a lot of that privacy usage in the future. And I find that very hard to believe. Because you cannot simply copy and paste grassroots adoption. Grassroots adoption comes from idealism. And there's just too many differences between Zcash and Monero that separate that idealism. Now, regardless of all of that, I have to be honest with you guys. Okay? I'm looking at the Monero price chart. And I've seen some other people comment on this. Body Anarchist, he has his 1 hour show on Monerotopia where he goes over the markets. It's generally pretty good stuff. I think he does a good job of not being over the top, like some of these chart guys. I think he gives very grounded technical advice. That's great. And I was looking at the Monero chart the other day. It just looks good to me. I'm just passing my eye test. I don't really know what the fuck's going on, though. I'm not a chart guy. I saw a body talk about Monero, and he's also very, very bullish on it. And it's kind of just like the way it's kind of just slowly creeping up. To me, it's interesting because right now we are in the midst of all these retard shills talking about privacy coin bull run and privacy coin this and all that, right? It's the new meta, right? And yet Monero is kind of just slowly creeping up. And I find that to be interesting because anybody who's been in this space knows that the consensus privacy cryptocurrency is Monero. It is. Look at the dark nets. The real ones know this. And despite that, it's not having that massive pump that Zcash has had, which I think is good. I don't like freakish pumps like that. That makes me very uneasy. So seeing this kind of slow uptick, it's very interesting. We're on the cusp of full chain membership proofs, and you better believe that Moonboys are going to be drawn to that type of development. And I don't know. We haven't seen that type of unrealistic type of gigapump with Monero, really. The only time we saw that this year was actually because of the hacker who was laundering his funds with Monero. If you remember back in, what was it, like April, May, around there. So literally organic usage was what drove the Monero price increase earlier this year. So it remains to be seen. I'm unsure if we will see a very large price increase, but this is the privacy coin meta that's going. And, now we have this fucking company, Cypherpunk Technologies. Lots of how do you do, fellow kids energy there, guys. Super cringe from the Winklevoss twins, who are totally irrelevant. They're rich, obviously, but, anybody who is, respected in this scene fucking hates those guys. And they're going on a tour talking about Zcash all the time. It's so lame. I don't know how. It's fake and gay is really what it is. You're listening to this, just what the fuck are these guys? And then on CNBC the other day, you got this dork on there talking about Zcash and how Bitcoin OGs are looking at Zcash now. It's no, they are not. I can tell you right now, they are absolutely not. The Bitcoin OGs do not give a shit about the electric coin company pet project. Okay? They don't give a shit. And they're looking at the price chart of Zcash and they're like, that is the most obvious coordinated pump and dump of all time. Because it is. It's just totally inorganic. You also have Binance saying on Twitter, bring back the cypherpunks. These fucking guys, man. Centralized KYC exchange that has delisted the most cypherpunk project, talking about bringing back the cypherpunks. What more needs to be said, But yeah, it is exciting times though. Shout out to the long-term Monero holders. It's been rough if you are comparing yourself to other projects. But if you actually really take a look at the past year, Monero has done very well. It has outperformed Bitcoin this year. It has. And frankly, looking at that price chart, I got to be honest with you guys, it looks very positive. Maybe there will be a market-wide dump, but like in the past, I do see Monero performing very well during a bear market anyways, as we've seen before. So, yeah, I'm pretty excited about the BTC ratio finally recovering. Now, one other thing I wanted to talk about, though, regarding this market stuff, is Michael Saylor. And I don't know if it's just me, but people, I think, are really starting to turn on the guy. Think about the perspective of Michael Saylor from the Bitcoin community. Compare that now to how it was a year ago. They've really soured on the guy. If you look at his posts, his shills are getting a lot more quiet, and the people who are getting annoyed are starting to get louder. And it's pretty logical if you think about it, because his promises are just not holding up. We've heard over and over again about how Bitcoin is exponentially going to rise, and that's just not happening. And the concerns are starting to get louder and louder because he's releasing all these preferred stock options, which are all junk. They're these high yield, stock options that offer no value, and they're junk. And he can turn off the dividends if he wants to, which he probably will, because he's not going to have any, money to pay them. And the problem is his only asset that he has at his disposal is one, more money coming in for new preferred stock options that he makes, or two, the Bitcoin he has. So he's stuck. He either has to make more preferred stocks to keep the show going, or he has to sell his Bitcoin. What does he do in that situation? Well, we're about to find out. Now, it was rumored that he did sell. He denied the rumor. And it's okay, well, show us your reserves. And then we come back to that whole thing. Why is he not showing us the Bitcoin that he's holding? Why is it not in a wallet that he just points to? Isn't that the whole fucking point of having a transparent ledger? And, he just gives a word salad that doesn't answer the question at all. And it's highly suspicious. It's why not? Because I don't know how else you're going to be making these payments. And the reality here is he's worked himself into a corner Because if he starts selling his Bitcoin, it will have a cascading effect and other people will start selling because it will signal that the bull run is over. And I don't know. I saw a tweet. So right now Bitcoin's at like $85,000 or something. And I saw a tweet where some guy just said, this just in, Michael Saylor buys, $800 million worth of Bitcoin at $127,000 per Bitcoin or something like that. Because it's true. It looks like he just keeps buying these tops, right? Like now would be the time probably to buy Bitcoin. Why isn't he buying Bitcoin like literally right now? You know what I mean? It's a little weird, right? Does he not have any money left? So anyways, I don't know. He's just going to post another AI generated image of himself and people are going to cringe. And I guess we'll have to wait and see. Okay, we got 2 stories, actually 3 stories to read through. I'm going to kind of jump around at these. First up, Bitmain. So this actually I just saw today. Very interesting article regarding Bitmain and a federal investigation over national security issues. So I'm reading this off of Bitcoin magazine, but Bloomberg has a whole very large article, which I'm not going to read through. So check that out if you're interested. But Bitcoin magazine has a summary. And basically what's happening here is there's now national security concern because these ASIC miners are all produced in China, right? They're all made in China. Now, this is a concern that we have as supporters of RandomX because we don't want there to be a monopoly of these ASICs, right? But that's kind of just how it is, and that's problematic. And what I see here is with Bitcoin, they want to control everything about Bitcoin. They're going to be trying to move away from this ASIC dominance in China, right? And so that is currently the meta that's happening here, where they want to take the ASIC mining and make it, from the United States. So it says here, Bitcoin Technologies, the Chinese manufacturer behind most of the world's Bitcoin mining machines, has been the focus of a federal investigation assessing whether its products pose national security risks, according to Bloomberg. The inquiry, dubbed Operation Red Sunset, let me pause there. That's a badass name. I have to admit, that's pretty cool. Continuing, led by the Department of Homeland Security, reportedly examined whether the company's machines could be remotely manipulated for espionage or sabotage of critical U.S. infrastructure. Bitmain denies these capabilities, but investigators have reportedly tested its equipment at ports and dissected chips and code to assess potential threats. The company's hardware has long attracted scrutiny. A 2017 Bitcoin magazine report suggested Antminer devices contain code allowing remote shutdown, which Bitmain said was a theft prevention feature later patched. Similar concerns resurfaced in 2019. In May 2024, then President Joe Biden blocked a crypto mining facility near a Wyoming nuclear missile base, citing national security risks linked to foreign-sourced mining equipment. The Committee on Foreign Investment in the United States said the presence of foreign mining devices near sensitive facilities could facilitate surveillance and espionage. Bitmain has repeatedly stated it complies with U.S. law and has no ties to Chinese government. It also denied awareness of Operation Red Sunset or any import-related investigations. The Commerce Department blacklisted Bitmain's AI affiliate Sopgo Technologies in January 2025 over alleged dealings with Huawei, further raising concerns about the company's ties to Beijing. Bitmain ties with the Trump family. The investigation intersects with the Trump family's crypto ventures. Eric and Donald Trump Jr. invested in American Bitcoin, a company that recently acquired 16,000 Bitmain devices for $314 million, per Bloomberg. The startup plans to operate 76,000 mining machines across the United States and Canada. American Bitcoin insists its operations follow strict security standards and that Bitmain hardware poses no credible risk to U.S. power grid or national security. The issue has drawn bipartisan attention. A July 2025 Senate Intelligence Committee report highlighted disturbing vulnerabilities in Bitmain devices and warned that facilities using them near power plants or military installations presents an unacceptable risk. GOP Representative Zach Nunn also requested CFI US review specialized chips and foreign mining hardware to assess broader policy implications. As the U.S. continues to monitor foreign crypto technology, the case underscores the tension between rapidly expanding digital asset industries and national security concerns, especially when high-profile political figures are involved. Well, there you have it. Yeah, I mean, this is interesting because it's kind of like people are really starting to wake up to this whole ASIC monopoly thing. I don't think people understand it's really just one company that's making all these miners. And so it's no surprise that governments will view it as a security risk because they are being made in China, right? It's also kind of funny too because Trump is so hard line against China, and his son's paid $340 million to a Chinese company to buy a bunch of ASIC miners. It's kind of amusing. One thing I will say too is the American government is cyclical between Republicans and Democrats, right? Basically, they just swap being in charge of the country every couple of years. They're the same party, but it's a tit for tat thing where there's little things on the outside, fringe issues that they'll push back on. And one fringe issue right now is that Republicans like crypto and Democrats don't like crypto. That's kind of the two sides here. And so once Democrats get back in power, they're going to be hard line against a lot of these pro crypto policies. And for example, these ASIC mining companies such as the Trump one, they will be attacked with regulations for sure. And it's going to be a shit show. Obviously, there's no difference in these two political parties when it comes to privacy. That's going to be a shit show regardless. But when it comes to kind of a looser regulatory environment, it's going to change. Absolutely. So it will be interesting to see what happens with Bitmain and or mining in general, 4 years down the line when Newsom becomes president or whatever, because I would imagine there's going to be a much harsher stance against them, and probably taxes due to the energy expenditure, some sort of green tax, which we've theorized in the past will be one of the ways they will enforce OFAC sanctions, where they'll say, hey, if you comply with our OFAC sanctions, we'll be more lenient when it comes to your usage of these miners and these mining facilities. Interesting article nonetheless, though. Now, here's another one targeting Trump. This is from CNBC. Senators push for probe into Trump-linked crypto firm over token sales tied to North Korea and Russia. It says here, 2 U.S. senators are pressing the Department of Justice and the Treasury Department to investigate a crypto company closely tied to the family of the United States President, Donald Trump, over alleged links to illicit actors in North Korea and Russia. In a letter on Tuesday, U.S. Senators Elizabeth Warren and Jack Reed, Democrats from Massachusetts and Rhode Island, they are minority members of the Senate Committee on Banking, Housing, and Urban Affairs. They raised concerns about World Liberty Financial, a crypto firm heavily owned and run by the Trump family, and that it may pose national security risks. The letter, obtained exclusively by CNBC and addressed to Attorney General Pamela Bondi and Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent, argue that World Liberty Financial lacks adequate safeguards to prevent bad actors from moving funds or gaining influence over its governance. Senators cited a September report from 501c3 nonprofit corporate watchdog called Accountable US, which said World Liberty Financial had sold its World Liberty Financial tokens to, quote, various highly suspicious entities, end quote. Those entities included traders with ties on the blockchain to a notorious North Korean hacking organization, a sanctioned Russian ruble-backed sanctions evasion tool, an Iranian crypto exchange, and Tornado Cash, a known money laundering platform, the watchdog alleged. Now, pause there. I have to point this out. They actually did write that word. Tornado Cash is a known money laundering platform. Like, that just shows you how we're losing this battle right now in the mainstream media and how people view cryptocurrency. Any usage of cryptocurrency is viewed as criminal. This is why we are darknet market maximalists, because we are viewing this from the perspective that the state hates anybody who likes privacy. Continuing the article, World Liberty Financial denied any wrongdoing, saying there is no conflict of interest between World Liberty Financial, a private crypto company with zero political power, and the United States government. World Liberty Financial conducted rigorous AML KYC checks on every pre-sale purchaser of the WLFI governance token, the highest standard in the industry, and turned down millions of dollars from potential purchasers, who failed the tests, a World Liberty Financial spokesperson told CNBC. Generally, AML refers to anti-money laundering regulations and policies, while KYC, or Know Your Customer, refers to procedures used to verify that clients are who they claim to be. So who runs World Liberty Financial? It lists family members Eric Trump, Donald Trump Jr., and Barron Trump as co-founders. The website shows Donald Trump as a co-founder emeritus. An entity affiliated with the United States president and some of its family members also holds major equity interests in WLF. A number of the company's governance token, WLFI, were released for public trading in September after earlier private investment rounds. World Liberty Financial says holders of the token play a key role in helping to shape the future of the protocol, with the ability to propose and vote on company proposals. However, a accountable U.S. investigation called into question who those holders were. The group's report noted that World Liberty Financial had sold $10,000 worth of its tokens in January to traders who had a history of transacting with a wallet that is now sanctioned for association with the North Korean state-sponsored hacking team Lazarus Group. By selling the tokens, World Liberty Financial took money from people with open and obvious connections to enemies of the United States, raised national security risks by giving them a seat at the table to influence the firm's governance, the senators alleged in the letter. World Liberty Financial plans to continue expanding and launching a new product, including a debit card and tokenized commodity assets. Oh, brother. The letter from the senators noted these expansions, but warned that the reported token sales to bad actors, quote, indicate an absence of robust sanctions and anti-money laundering controls, and that WLF risks supercharging illicit finance activity. Okay. And furthermore, the Trump's family's close ties to the company also create a financial conflict of interest for Trump administration officials that report to the president. Prioritizing token sales will directly enrich the Trump family, while compliance activities may interfere with this wealth creation. DT Marks DeFi LLC, an entity affiliated with Donald J. Trump and certain of his family members, holds 22.5 billion WLFI tokens valued at over $3 billion and is entitled to 75% of the proceeds from these token sales. That means every time a governance token is sold, 3/4 of that money goes directly to President Trump and his family, even for sales to entities linked to North Korea and Russia. In a separate report in August, it was estimated that roughly $11.6 billion, or 73% of Trump's net worth, is tied to his cryptocurrency ventures, which include the launch of a Trump meme coin and Melania as well, I would imagine. According to Reuters, an annual financial disclosure released by the United States Government of Ethics for the 2024 calendar year showed that Trump's move into crypto added significantly to his wealth. So the article goes on talking about ongoing scrutiny. Also mentions Trump pardoning CZ, and things like that. But again, guys, like, this is how American politics kind of works. It's the same shit sandwich, right? Every election. It's going to suck. Taxes are going to go up. Your money's going to be worth less over time. You're going to be involved in wars. You're going to be spied on, right? It's a shit sandwich either way. But there's also this like push-pull between these two parties. And it's like tit for tat BS. And obviously Trump is doing like reckless shit, and he's being called out by it by the Democrats, who are right. Like, there's a lot of weird shit going on here with Trump, like, significantly adding to his cryptocurrency holdings with these like fucking meme coins like Melania and Trump coin, like total joke. People got pump and dumped on, and he profits from it, which is actually kind of crazy if you think about it. Like, it really is. Yeah, the whole thing is fucking nuts. Now, obviously, they're going at it from this angle of, well, the North Koreans and Russia, you know, and it's only like $10,000 of like the billions of dollars that are used for this. It's a smear, but this is more, but this magnifies how much the government hates people actually using crypto. That's really the big issue here, because they're always going to use North Korea or Russia or China or, you know, evil people are using crypto and it's tied to you. Therefore, you are evil. And this is like literally the basis of what happened with Samourai Wallet and with Tornado Cash. And even in this article, they branded Tornado Cash as a known money laundering platform. Like, this is how they view privacy. And it doesn't matter who the president is, it doesn't matter what party they're in, we're going to be fighting this because we have to. There's no other choice we have. And that leads me, oh boy, to the last story here. This one I'm not going to spend that much time on. Headline reads, this is from The Rage, Roman Storm should not be acquitted, government says. The jury reasonably concluded that the Tornado Cash transferred funds to the government states. In October, Tornado Cash developer Roman Storm, who was found guilty of conspiring to operate an unlicensed money transmitter earlier this year in the Southern District of New York, filed a motion for acquittal on all accounts. At trial, the jury was unable to come to the conclusion on whether Storm conspired to commit money laundering and conspired to violate U.S. sanctions, resulting in deadlock. Now, the government has filed its opposition, arguing that Storm's motion for acquittal should be denied because Tornado Cash did transmit user funds, finding which appears at odds with FinCEN guidance, the opinion of senior FinCEN employees, the opinion of members of Congress, and the Department of Justice itself. And they have links to stuff we've already mentioned, right? The FinCEN guidance, like, and the FinCEN members of that were contacted in the Samourai Wallet case, they were like, yeah, you know, Samourai Wallet's not a money transmitter. It doesn't matter, right? They're still going after them. So this was expected. It would have been unexpected if they had, you know, said, oh yeah, we'll go acquit Roman. Hell no. They're going to keep fighting this. And unfortunately, we will have a round 2 at some point, and we'll have to go through this fucking trial again. And hopefully we win. It's all we can hope for at this point. Okay, well, we are now on to the Super Chats. xmrchat.com/Xenu. If you'd like to donate, we got a nice handful here. First up, from Cyrus the Acceptable, who donates 0.012345 XMR. Thank you, Cyrus. Appreciated. He says, thanks again for all you do. Did you see Andrew Tate promote Monero? Nice of him to do that. And then in parentheses, JK. Yeah, so Andrew Tate has been talking about zero knowledge proofs a lot. And on the one hand, I will say it's nice because he's not, at least at this point, shilling a project. It seems like he's about to start shilling a project, though. So once he does that, I'm going to be completely negative on him. But I do like the fact that he's talking about privacy. And this is part of the whole privacy coin fucking meta going on right now. It's nice, though, because, yeah, this is a blind spot for a lot of people. People don't understand that, like, cryptocurrency is almost entirely transparent unless you go out of your way to make it not transparent. So we'll have to wait and see what comes out of this. I'm assuming he's going to launch some fucking privacy stablecoin or something with a retarded pre-mine. He's going to pump and dump something, but who knows? But yeah, he keeps mentioning zero knowledge proofs, how this is like the most important thing. And it's true that zero knowledge proofs are very important. But it definitely reads like somebody who like just got shilled this and is like trying to do his own shilling. And it's kind of just like, dude, like we've been talking crypto privacy for like well over a decade now. You know, you should probably learn a thing or two about the actual users over here because, you know, they're using Monero. So I don't know. I imagine I'd be shocked if he doesn't know about Monero, right? And I talk about this in Darknet Market Maximalism, like the clout that Monero is building from its Darknet usage will eventually make it to people like Andrew Tate. Like it's inevitable. We've seen that with Nick Fuentes, for example. He's name dropped Monero a couple times now. So I think it is quite possible that we will have someone like Andrew Tate talk about Monero in the future. But right now he's focused on zero knowledge proofs, you know. And we'll see what happens with that. I don't think though that it was an entirely negative thing. If he's not actually like shilling some project and he's like, you know, being serious, talking about like we need zero knowledge proofs and privacy in crypto, I think that's great. So I don't know. That's my optimistic take on it, I guess. Next up, we got a donation from Leo who gives 0.02 XMR. Thank you, Leo. He says, hope you're having a good time off. I came across an article from Sam Bent about how $53 can kill the Tor network. And this is another red flag for Tor. By the way, what do you think of this Gloria BTC dev? She feels off too. Well, thank you, Leo. Yeah, I did actually take a look at that article. I haven't had a chance to watch the video yet, but it seems like there's some like DDoS attack that can impact the Tor network. And it was found, and the developers haven't really done anything about it. Yeah, I mean, I don't know, man. Tor, it's definitely, it feels like it is a project that is not really trying to harden itself. Over the past couple of years, we've seen it become like geared more towards like normies, which doesn't really make any sense. Like the Tor project should be just like constantly like going balls to the wall, schizo paranoid. Like that's what I want my browser. You know, I want like the autistic fucking schizo Tor arc. You know what I mean? I want like that. But instead they just like do dumb shit. Like they got rid of their user agent spoofing, right? They're no longer JavaScript off by default. Things like that, and people are going to slip because of that. So I don't know. It's definitely a little suspect, I would say. And what do you think of Gloria BTC dev? She feels off too. To be honest with you, I don't really know much about her or the core drama in general. So I don't really have much of a comment on that. All right, moving on. We got two more. This one's from Lane, who gives 0.01 XMR. Thank you, Lane. And they say, could you make a tutorial video on deniable encryption? Many of us live in countries where you have to provide passwords to law enforcement, or you can face 5, sometimes 10 years in prison. I hear Veracrypt is a great tool for this. Thank you. Yeah, maybe I will. Yeah, I actually do use Lux encryption for my desktop. Highly recommend that you do that if you use Linux. And yeah, Veracrypt is pretty cool. It's like you basically can just make a vault that's encrypted and can't get into it. Maybe I should make a video on encryption in general. Veracrypt would be a good video to do actually, because it's pretty easy to use and it's very useful, and I recommend people use it. And lastly, a donation from Anon, who gives 0.01 XMR. Thanks, buddy. Appreciate it. He says, for people who still believe privacy is a fundamental human right, this tool hides messages in plain sight with real crypto. And he links to runecipher.com. Never heard of it. Looks like you can text in runes. Pretty cool. I gotta say, I do like runes. Don't know anything about them, but they look cool, you know. I feel a deep yearning deep in my gut when I look at a rune. You know what I mean? My old ancestors were talking shit to each other in runes back in the day. Now I can do it on runecipher.com. Well, thank you very much. I appreciate the donation. I have to say, though, your message you sent me, though, was almost perfect because it rhymed. I don't know if you realize that. For people who still believe privacy is a fundamental human right, this tool hides messages in plain sight with real crypto. How about for people who believe privacy is a human right, this tool hides messages in plain sight? You see what I did there? I think that rolls off the tongue a little better. But anyway, thank you, Anon. Thank you to everyone who did donate. xmrchat.com/Xenu. If you have a interest in donating in the future, you can do that, and I'll respond to your question or comment, and it's always appreciated. So thank you guys so much. All right, well, as promised, we are now going to segue into a long-form discussion about my trip to Spain. So if you don't want to hear about this, tune in next week. We'll have more anti-Moonboy news regarding digital cash. But yeah, I went to Spain recently and I wanted to talk about it. Now, you might be wondering, why Spain? Why would you want to go there compared to other countries? Well, obviously, Spain is a very well-known country in Europe. It's on the Mediterranean, or the Iberian Peninsula. The Romans were there. Then there were Muslims, and there was an Inquisition. A lot of history in Spain. But for me personally, there's two primary reasons why I want to go to Spain. The main reason is because for the past couple years, I have been learning Spanish. And this is actually something I haven't really talked about on this program, but I really, really enjoy it. It's something that I started to do like 2-3 years ago. And it's like one of my favorite hobbies right now. I really fell in love with the language because the thing is, as an American, we really don't have any other purpose. We don't really need another language other than English for anything, right? And so it's frustrating when you meet your friends from fucking Belgium and they could speak 8 languages and you're just you feel like a retard. You know what I mean? And so I was always monolingual, and I was I want to speak another language. I'm tired of this. And when I was a kid, in high school, I took Spanish class, but it's didn't really stick with me, and I'm not alone in this where you need to have that passion to learn a language, right? And without that passion, it's just, you're memorizing vocabulary or whatever. It's not going to stick with you in the long term, right? Plus, I wasn't practicing. I didn't actually care about, studying different, books or whatever. So anyways, a couple years ago, I decided I'm going to learn a damn language. So I picked Spanish, mostly because it's very useful. Depending on where you are in the United States, there's a very good chance there are Spanish speakers near you because there just are a lot of Spanish-speaking people in the United States. So it's a very useful tool to have. But yeah, I quickly just, like I said, I fell in love with the language. I really like how it sounds. I love the culture. The music is freaking awesome. So many different genres, so many different it's honestly overwhelming. I love the history, learning about different countries. The women are hot. Not enough said, really. It's just a really awesome thing to get into, and I do believe that eventually I will try to live in another country or a Spanish-speaking country. I think I would really enjoy that, just because I find this to be very mentally stimulating, I guess. So anyways, I like to therefore travel to different countries that speak Spanish. To date, I've only gone to Mexico and now Spain, and both times have been awesome. So this is really the second time I've gone to a different country, but really like the first time I've gone to a different country with like a more advanced level. I would classify my speaking as still intermediate. I want to get better, but my reading comprehension is actually very strong at this point. And like my listening comprehension, I listen to the news every day, international news in Spanish, and I can pretty much understand everything. So like I've progressed to that point where like my comprehension's great. I'm just not good at like outputting sentences in a coherent, highly educated manner. I probably need like another couple years before I'm at that level. I'll get there eventually, but for now I'm just enjoying, watching content in Spanish, or in this case, going to another country, right? So anyways, I decided to go to Spain. Oh, the other reason too, right? So there's my love for the Spanish language, right? The second reason is my aunt and uncle live in Spain. They are Americans. They immigrated to Spain when they retired, and they bought up some property. Yes, they did. They love it over there, though. They love the people over there, and they really wanted me to come visit. And obviously, I wanted to visit them too. They live in Málaga, which is one of the two cities I visited, of course. I visited Barcelona and Málaga, and Málaga is in the very south of Spain. It's very close to Gibraltar, actually. And their house, no joke, overlooked the Mediterranean. It was pretty freaking awesome. So anyways, I wanted to go visit them. And so that was the inspiration behind this trip. So anyways, I left to Barcelona for 4 days, and then I went to Málaga for like 5 days, and then back home to the States. So Barcelona, I arrived, was pretty wiped out from the travels. Thursday I didn't really do much just because, I was exhausted, and I pretty much got to my hotel like 6 p.m. So went out, got something to eat. But Friday was the first big day, and on Friday I actually met up with a fan of my show. So I had announced on my show, like a couple weeks ago. I said, "Hey, I'm going to Spain." He emailed me the next day, and he's like, "Hey, I'm going to be in Barcelona if you want to meet up." So we did. Super cool dude. We spoke Spanish the entire time. Well, not the entire time. I would say like 80% of the time. He also spoke some English as well. His English was very good. And it was awesome just because like this was a really intelligent guy. And he was asking me for advice also about starting like a channel, like making content, but like voice doxing yourself and stuff. And, I was kind of just telling him like, you kind of just have to pull the trigger, like at the end of the day, there's bigger things, right? Educating people about privacy and OPSEC, I think, is more important, at least for myself, than being completely anonymous. I would rather educate people, and I've gotten so much enjoyment out of that. So I tried to get that through to this guy, and I think I did. But he was very smart. He was actually telling me about how bad Spain is, which I was like kind of a blind spot. I mean, I kind of as an American, we kind of just like lump all of like Europe together. They're all just like socialist commies, But no, he was telling me that like in Spain, if you think about it, John McAfee, he died in prison over there. Roger Ver, that whole thing happened. The Archetype founder, he got arrested in Barcelona, actually. There's a lot of different things, and he was telling me some other laws that they have. It's crazy over there. So, yeah, I think when it comes to privacy rights, yeah, I have a lot of fans on my show that are from Europe, and I don't even really know too much about the laws over there. And yeah, when I was talking to this guy, I was like, man, damn, like you guys, yeah, this is bad, which I already knew, but it was pretty cool to get that like different type of perspective and things like that, you know. So anyways, I gave him a shirt, gave him a camel shirt as a gift, and then he took me to a local restaurant. It was like a Catalan restaurant where we had, you know, local or very traditional Catalan food. That was one thing. So if you weren't aware, Barcelona is part of Catalonia, which is a section of Spain that wants to secede from Spain. And there's a whole very tense political history between Spain and Catalonia. If you've ever like heard of like the rivalry between Real Madrid and Barcelona with Messi and Ronaldo, if you've ever heard of that, the actual political climate between Spain and Catalonia is why that rivalry is so intense, because like they've almost gone into war recently, basically. Like it's like super intense. It's quieted down like recently, but yeah, it's actually very, very serious. So because of that, in Barcelona, like when you're in the airport, they actually announce everything first in Catalan, and Catalan is a separate language. Like, for example, I can only understand like bits and pieces of Catalan because it's kind of like a mix between Spanish and like French, I would say. It's just different. It's a Romance language, but you wouldn't be able to understand it. So when you're in the airport, they first give you directions or announcements in Catalan, and then they'll give it to you in Spanish, and then they'll give it to you in English, which is kind of funny. And yeah, the people who live in Barcelona, generally speaking, especially the younger people, they can speak all three languages, which is pretty cool. But for the most part, like when I was out and about, people would speak Spanish. I think the Catalan stuff is more reserved for like very local like establishments, you know. I mean, obviously, I stuck out of being not from Barcelona because I'm fucking whiter than a ghost. That was actually one thing too, where like so the people in Spain, if you weren't aware, they hate British people. And I heard this like over and over again throughout the week. And this is it's because British people have like a really bad reputation over there because they're like arrogant and drunk, and they don't like to follow like local customs and shit. So I think throughout the week, people thought I was British, because I don't know, like there's not as many Americans that go visit. Like the majority of like the white people that I look like are British people. So. But I got respect once I like would at least attempt speaking Spanish, because like if I were to go to like a restaurant by myself, which happened the majority of the time, like when I was just going around, they would just speak, like the waiters would just speak to me immediately in English. But yeah, I did hear from various people that like British people are just they don't like them. I don't know how else to say it. Anyway, so back to the hanging out with the fan. Yeah, it was awesome. We talked about a lot of different things. And, one thing that was really cool, though, is, I mean, after talking to him for, like, hours in Spanish, he was, like pushing me to, like, make content in Spanish. And I'm not, like, comfortable enough yet. But he's like, no, you really should do it. So he's motivated me. And I'm going to be having some Spanish content actually coming out soon. I haven't really announced this yet, but it will be happening at some point. For example, I will be appearing on a podcast probably in like January. It's going to be like an interview totally in Spanish. And also at Monerotopia, I will be doing some sort of presentation in Spanish as well. So I'm like super excited for that. Admittingly, I'm a little nervous, but this is how you learn, man. You got to throw yourself into the fire, right? You can't be a pussy. You got to just do it. So anyways, to my homie out there from Spain who I hung out with, you're the man. Hopefully I see you again, and hopefully you make some content because you got a good head on your shoulders. Smart kid. So anyways, that was awesome. Now Friday was the first day also of a music festival I went to called Mira Festival. And the festival basically took place, over 2 nights, Friday and Saturday. Friday, I didn't really like many of the artists there. Saturday was like the big day. But basically, it was very well set up. Visually, there was like a lot of like cool art installations. Like very, very cool to like look at. They did a really good job of the presentation there. And they had all these different performances. One thing I'll say is that there really were probably hardly any Americans there. I think I was probably one of the only Americans there. It was a very like local festival, which was pretty cool. I like that vibe where it's like kind of like an obscure festival. So I'm assuming most of the people there thought I was like British again, but it was kind of cool like that. And everyone there was very friendly. And it was cool, talking to the locals there. Now, the big show that day was Nicholas Jar. So Nicholas Jar is a electronic musician, and he was doing a collaboration with I'm blanking on his name. It was a singer. And so basically the way their setup was Nicholas Jar was like on synthesizer, kind of like noodling, like really pretty melodies. And then the singer was like, well, he was singing, but it was like more like chanting, I guess, and stuff. It was like very pretty, very like heavenly, angelic. But the one thing I will say though about Barcelona that rubbed me the wrong way is that their crowds, they love to talk during shows. And I actually already known about this because there's another music festival in Barcelona I was going to, and I read people complaining about the crowds there. But yeah, they're talkers, man. And so like during this set, it was really pretty music, but like people were talking like all around me, and I was like, "What the fuck, shut the fuck! This is very pretty." So, anyways, I had to like move around, and then I found a spot where I could like enjoy the music more. And it was all right, though. I mean, like, I would rather have heard, like, a DJ set from Nicholas Jar because he's a very talented electronic musician, or, like, a live set. He does, like, live electronic music, and he can also play the saxophone. It's pretty incredible stuff if you've never seen him. He's a very talented musician. But this set was kind of subpar, to be honest. But, yeah, I walked around. John Mouse was there. Indie Darling. He was actually on MDE from Adult Swim. He was in one of the episodes of that show. Anyway, I saw him. That was pretty cool. And then there was another, I forget the name of the other musician I saw that day. It was a good time though. But Saturday though was the big day, because on Saturday I saw back to back 1-0 Point Never, and then Flying Lotus, and then Blawan. So these are my 3 most anticipated acts, and they were playing on the same stage back to back. So yeah, I got there for 1-0, and whew, man, that was fucking intense, to say the least. If you've never listened to 1-0, it is like very intense ambient music. Like, it's like, yeah, I like it. You kind of, it's like an experience. And I'm not just, this is gonna, This is gonna sound super gay, but like I was like, fuck, I gotta sit down. I did too. I found a spot in like the corner, and I just let the sounds wash over me. Man, I'm such a fucking pussy, huh? No, it was great though. It was awesome. Like I was like totally vibing to the music. Because it's like, yeah, it was like super, super pretty. And also he had this like visual director he was collaborating with. And the visual guy, yeah, like was improvising like stuff behind as the One-O-Trix was performing. And it was like really cool visual stuff. It was awesome. Super intense set, and it just kind of flowed really well together. So if you've never listened to One-O-Trix, check out R+7's really good. Yeah, check that album out. He's also he's produced a lot of soundtracks. So the movie Good Time, great movie. He did the soundtrack for Good Time. He also did the soundtrack for Uncut Gems. So if you've seen either of those movies, he's just an absolute wizard with the synthesizer. Like he just makes really cool sounds. So yeah, that was one of the best moments of the week for me because it was just an awesome set. So then after him, Flying Lotus played, and I gotta be honest with you guys, Fly Low, one of my all-time favorites. It was a pretty bad set. I'm pretty sure he was like wasted. I'm like 95% sure he was either wasted or like very high because the first like 30 minutes of a set was like very sloppy. It was pretty sloppy. There was like no cohesive flow to it. You could tell that he was kind of winging it, which is fine, but I've seen him before. Like I know he could do better. But the last half of his set, he kind of rallied and he like played better, and it was a good time. It didn't help too. The sound was kind of muddy. Also in this, it was like a kind of like a convention hall that they converted. So yeah, the sound was a little muddy while he was playing. It was pretty cool though. Afterwards, after every musician actually, there's like this area to the side, and the musicians would like hang out. You can go and talk to them. So I actually went up and like I was literally arm's length away from Flylo. He was talking to some girl who was a fan, and I stood there for like a minute, and I just felt like a dork, and I left because I mean I felt kind of weird about it. I don't really like. I don't know. I get I'm probably being autistic about this, but like it just felt kind of weird because like some girl was like being a groupie or whatever, and I was like, yeah, all right. But he seemed very like happy and stuff, probably because he was fucked up. He like at one point he stopped the show. He's like, Barcelona. Like, you know what I mean? Yeah. Actually, he did that like several times, and I was like, oof. I think he dipped into something there. But it was still cool to see him because he did play some like pretty experimental tracks. But then afterwards, though, so Blawan was next. He's the techno guy. I mean, the guy, he played exactly for an hour, and it was just a clinic, He just came ready to play, and he just tore the setup. Like, it was ridiculous. Like, he just has like complete control over what he wants to do, and he made a really pretty set. It was very challenging at first, some really experimental sounds at first, and then he just went in on like 4 on the floor, like fucking techno, and it was hard. It was good stuff. And yeah, he played exactly an hour, then he left. It was like a nuke went off. It was like, oh shit. I wish he had played longer. That was the only thing. I would love to see him at like a club play for at least like 2-3 hours. Because an hour, I just wanted more at the end. So that was pretty awesome. So So yeah, Meta Festival was overall quite a good experience. I saw a couple other artists too, nothing worth kind of bringing up, but that was a lot of fun. I also walked around Barcelona. Nothing really that interesting to say, I guess. Some of the architecture there was pretty incredible. It's a pretty cool city overall. Good vibe. And I will say, though, if I do go back, I'm going to have to be a little bit better of a tourist. I get like, I'm just bad at planning things. So I didn't really plan my trip that well, at least in Barcelona. I did a lot better in Málaga because my aunt and uncle helped. But like for Barcelona, I would kind of just like walk around, take like a walk during the day, and then take a nap, and then go to like the concerts and stuff. So I probably could have like planned out a better trip, but whatever. So yeah, then I went down to Málaga, and in Málaga met up with my aunt and uncle, and that was awesome. My aunt and uncle, they're kind of like, entitled liberal boomers. You know what I mean? They like my aunt. She's adorable. She's like 70, but like she has a smartwatch, and it would give her alerts about like news with Trump, and she would get mad about it. I mean, I don't really give a shit because like I don't care about politics, but it was kind of amusing because they had to move away from that. That's one of the reasons why they moved to Spain, evidently. And we'd be driving around, and they would be ranting. My aunt and uncle, they'd be ranting about the British people. Yet again, this comes up about how the British people in Málaga aren't assimilating that well, and how they don't care about the local customs and stuff. I thought that was pretty funny. And so what was cool, though, is where they lived was like a train ride away from the airport. So I was just taking the train the entire week because you could take that train to where they lived in their pueblo, or you could go to downtown Málaga, to the actual city, which is what we did. The city itself was pretty cool. I mostly stay in the touristy area, or I guess like the tourist area and also the outskirts of it. So I didn't really see too much of Málaga, I guess. But the tourist area was cool. There's like some cool cathedrals. There was this like Roman, this like Roman theater that was there. That was pretty cool. That you can see and stuff. And there was like this one area where it was like what was it? It was like a building, but then they started digging underneath it, and then they found like Roman ruins like underneath it, which is pretty fucking cool. Yeah, because that's like one thing about Spain that's like pretty incredible is like it's had like all these different like types of people who have lived on their land. And so yeah, the Romans used to be there, and then I think it was the Muslims, and then they got driven out by the Spaniards, or like the Spanish like kings and stuff. Yeah, something like that. But for example, there's actually like an Arabic influence on the Spanish language. One of the fragments of this, and this also exists in English, I guess, but in Spanish as well, words that start with AL are actually from Arabic. Not every word, I guess, but a lot of them. So, for example, the word alcohol, or in Spanish, alcohol, that's actually like that's directly from Arabic. It was pretty cool. So like there's a lot of like cultural fragments like that are in the Spanish language just because of the fact that there were Muslims on the Iberian Peninsula, for example. So I think that's pretty cool. So anyways, Málaga tourist area. Oh yeah, I was going to go to the Picasso Museum. That the line was too big. But then there was a museum of like the city of Málaga. Basically, there's a bunch of like art that they found in Málaga, which is pretty cool. So they had like busts, and like, so they had like pottery and paintings and stuff. It wasn't like a massive museum. It was actually very small, but it was still pretty cool. But then after that, there was this like courtyard, and so I was walking around the courtyard, and then they had a performance, like an impromptu performance on the stage. So I sat down, and there were 3 people on stage. There was one person painting during this entire time. He just started painting on this like big white sheet of paper. Then there was a guy with a guitar playing flamenco, and it was fucking incredible. His voice was great. He's just tearing it up. It's a good time. So he's playing. I'm into it. And then there's a girl there on stage as well. She's also sitting next to him. So they're both sitting down. And she's just sitting there looking pretty. She's kind of just like looking ahead, kind of. So then the guy finishes his song. So anyway, he stops playing, and then he like puts his guitar down and he like steps back. So now he's behind the stage, standing and like staring directly ahead. The guy who's painting, he's still painting, and then the girl gets up and she starts like looking forward and then looking back at the man and then looking forward, and she starts doing this like fucking interpretive dance thing. It sucked ass. Like I was kind of pissed off. Like I wanted them to like go back into the flamenco, and it was like 5 minutes of her doing this like interpretive dance, dead quiet, by the way, and the guy's still painting during the whole thing. And so I left. I don't know. I maybe Spaniards are into that. I don't know. That was just like one thing I just thought of that was kind of funny. Yeah, the food though, great in Malaga. I really enjoyed it. Yeah, they like in all of Spain, they like these things called tapas, and tapas are like appetizers. So like they like enjoy just like going to like a place and you get like an appetizer, and that's kind of like your meal. And my favorite was croquetas, which are like, how do I describe it? And these are basically like deep fried rolls with this like creamy sauce mixed with like the like fillings like spinach or like ham or whatever. And yeah, it was just like delicious. Those were like really, really good. So I ate like, I pretty much ate those at like every place I went to. I was kind of addicted, to be honest. So that was pretty cool. When I was with my my friend from Spain, we had this like traditional meal where it was like these like small slices of bread, but with tomato sauce on it. Not like pasta sauce, but like tomato like juice or almost. And you would just eat like slices of bread with that. It was actually very good. I've never thought of that combination before. It was pretty cool. So yeah, one of the highlights too of the week was just walking around the town that my aunt and uncle lived in, because it was super pretty. Overlooks the Mediterranean, and they have like a little like town square there. It was freaking awesome. Like just very like I could see why they wanted to retire there, because it's just like freaking paradise. The only problem with Málaga though is it gets like super hot during the summer, which I wouldn't be able to handle. But other than that, it was like absolutely ideal. But yeah, we walked around their town. We had a really good dinner there. And yeah, it was awesome. Now the last thing, so I pretty much went over everything here. Like if you've never been to Spain, definitely recommend. You can get by without really knowing any Spanish. Everyone, especially in the tourist areas, people speak English, so like you'll be fine. However, prior to ending though, I do want to go on a little rant, mostly for the content purposes of this. I gotta be entertaining you guys, right? But it's actually about my aunt and uncle, and technically she's my great aunt, but I call her my aunt. And so, she's like 70, right? And I've already kind of told you guys that they're like liberal kind of boomers. And they spend a lot of the time kind of talking about how they don't like the people who aren't like assimilating with Malaga, and like the tourists they didn't like as well. They talked about the tourism and how they don't like that, how it's ruining Malaga and stuff. I can hear the collective eye rolling. Believe me, I know, guys, I know. And so whatever. I love these guys. They mean well, right? They mean really well, and they were so kind to me throughout the week. I have to make that clear to you guys. So kind, so hospitable, and they were also very, very kind to all the workers there. They only buy locally, so like they're not horrible people. Okay. However, I come to find out that my aunt and uncle, who have lived in Spain for 11 years, who, as I've mentioned, complain pretty frequently about people who aren't abiding by the culture of Malaga, I come to find out they can't speak Spanish. like right hand to God. Okay, their level of Spanish understanding is like elementary, like straight up. You could be at their level after like 20 hours of study. Like that's how poor their Spanish was. Like what the fuck, man? I was shocked. Like I was actually pretty shocked because, like, again, like they kept like talking about how much they like. They were like frustrated by like all the tourists and like all this stuff, and they like were really emphasizing like like being part of the Malagan or the Malagese culture. I forget the word, but and then they can't even fucking speak Spanish. It's like how are you not doing that as an immigrant? Like if I'm moving to a country, I'm gonna learn their language. And I do see like if it's like a language radically different than English, okay, it's probably gonna be very difficult, right? Like if you move to like Beijing, for example, that's gonna take a lot of effort. But like Spanish, it's not that hard. You know what I mean? Like it's not that radically different. And they were like just clearly they just never practice. Like we were at a restaurant, okay? And we're at a restaurant, and my aunt decided to ask the waiter if she could use a credit card. Okay? This is what she did. She pulls out her credit card, and the waiter walks by, and this is how she said. She goes, "Hola, hola." And she's like waving her hand, and the waiter looks over at her, walks over to the table, and she says, "Sí, hola. Por favor, por favor." And then she starts pointing at the credit card in her hand. She's like frantically pointing at it. And she's like, tarjeta aquí? Tarjeta aquí? That's what she did. 11 years in Spain. And that's how she asked if they allow credit card. Like, honestly, it's kind of insane. Tarjeta is the word for credit card, or card, I guess. Yeah, the whole thing was just bizarre. It was just like, what the fuck? Because like you're missing out on so much of the culture if you don't speak the language. Like, if you really think about it, like, culture is like derived from language. So if you're not learning the language and you're living in the country, then you're just like a glorified tourist, right? Like I felt bad for them that they don't know the language. It's like you guys are missing out. Like you would have like even a much better time if you could like, have a rapport with the people here. And I'm not saying like my Spanish is like very good. It's not. Like I'm trying to get better. But the fact that they're not even trying is just like fucking annoying to me, because like they have like this amazing opportunity because they live in another country that only speaks that language or predominantly speaks that language. So that was just like fucking crazy. So then, so then I was in a restaurant in Málaga, and I was sitting up at the bar, and these two girls sat next to me. These really pretty like businesswoman types, you know, very pretty. But I told them about my aunt and uncle and how they couldn't speak Spanish, and they were so fucking pissed. Like, dude, they were one of the girls literally said to me, "Necesitas matala," which means you need to kill her. Yeah, but it was pretty funny though. So yeah, Málaga was a good time. Really pretty, and very grateful for my aunt and uncle for giving me a roof to sleep under and all of that. And so yeah, I'm back in the States now. Had a great time. And yeah, hope you guys enjoy that recap of Spain. I can't really think of anything else. Anyways, I'm going to get going here. Hopefully I can get this out by the Monday night deadline I usually hold myself at. We're running pretty late here. If you like the content, you can shoot me a donation at xmrchat.com/Xenu. Thanks as always for the support. And we'll be back next Monday with another episode of Anti-Moonboy News. Thanks. See you guys next week.